Have you ever felt that there was more to these ancient stories than what we were taught? When I first began to question my beliefs, I felt lost, even angry. I'd been taught that the Bible was unique and literal, a history book that explained everything. But as I dug deeper into the origins of these teachings, I discovered something far more expansive, inclusive, and universal, rooted in ancient wisdom. The ancient Egyptians, or the people of Kemet, understood these stories as metaphors for the journey of the soul. They weren't just stories about historical figures or literal events, but were deeply symbolic teachings meant to guide us in understanding different states of consciousness on our spiritual journey. For example, the sons of God and daughters of men have often been taken literally, sometimes even used to justify harmful ideas about gender roles, power, and control. But these stories were never meant to be about men exerting power over women. They were meant to convey profound truths about our soul's journey and evolution. Today, we'll uncover the deeper meaning behind these terms: Son of God, Son of Men, and Daughters of Men, and how they reflect stages and experiences of our soul's journey as taught by the ancient Egyptians. This isn't about gender or dominance. It's about understanding the soul's journey as it navigates the human experience. By shifting our perspective, we can move beyond outdated, literal interpretations that have limited and harmed so many, and instead recover the universal truths that these ancient stories were always meant to convey. Section 1. The Egyptian Roots and Why These Terms Were Used. To truly understand why these terms, Son of God, Son of Man, and Daughters of Men, appear in the Bible, we need to take a moment to look at their origins in ancient Egypt, or Kemet, as it was known. The ancient writers of the Bible and other ancient texts use these terms to convey the ancient Egyptian concepts to describe different aspects of the soul's journey and states of consciousness. For instance, the Son of God represented the divine potential within every individual, an idea often depicted in the figure of Horus, the falcon-headed god. He wasn't meant to be a literal person, but was an archetype representing the highest version of ourselves, striving toward enlightenment. Similarly, the Son of Man was about the soul's journey through the material world, with its challenges and growth opportunities. This journey was symbolized by Osiris, who experienced death and resurrection, reflecting the transformation we undergo as souls evolving through life's experiences. And then there's the Daughters of Men, representing the nurturing, receptive energies within us. This was symbolized by Neters like Isis and Nephthys, who embodied the creative, compassionate aspects of our soul. The Egyptians understood that achieving wholeness meant embracing both the divine feminine and divine masculine energies within ourselves. These ancient concepts were passed down through generations, eventually finding their way into biblical narratives. But as we'll explore, their meanings have been distorted or misunderstood over time. Let's peel back the layers and uncover the original wisdom they were meant to convey. As we peel back these ancient stories, let's start back with the Sons of Man, a concept that represents the journey of a human while in physical form. We've set the stage with the ancient Egyptian perspective on the soul's journey. Now let's dive deeper into how these ideas were reflected in the Bible. Starting with the Son of Man, what does this concept really mean, and how does it relate to our own spiritual path? Let's find out. Section 2. The Sons of Man, the Human Journey Through Materiality. Let's dive into the idea of the Son of Man. This term pops up frequently in the Bible, and Jesus often used it to refer to himself. But when you understand the ancient Egyptian perspective, you'll see that this concept isn't about a man or even a specific gender. It's about the soul's journey through the human experience. In ancient Egyptian teachings, the Son of Man aligns with the netter Osiris. Osiris symbolizes the soul that's buried within the human experience, unaware of its divine nature, much like a spark of God that's temporarily forgotten what it is. This spark is genderless, representing the pure essence of the soul. The Son of Man is essentially a metaphor for being in a state of spiritual sleep or even death, just going through life's ups and downs, unaware of your true divine self. And let's be honest, we all get caught up in life's challenges and forget who we truly are at times. Now let's take a look at the story of Lazarus in the book of John chapter 11 to see this in action. So Jesus is hanging out with his disciples, and he hears that his friend Lazarus is, well, asleep. Now this is classic Jesus, speaking in riddles and metaphors. In verse 9 he says, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by the world's light. But it's when you walk at night that you trip, because there's no light." Now, if you're wondering what this means, Jesus is dropping some serious ancient Egyptian wisdom here. The Egyptians believed that the journey of the soul was divided into 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, just like the path of the bark of Ra. When you're walking in the light, you're connected to your divine self. You see clearly. But when you're in the dark, you stumble around, lost, because you've forgotten who you truly are. Then Jesus goes on to say, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going to wake him up." And the disciples, bless their little hearts, respond with, "Well, if he's just sleeping, he'll wake up on his own, right?" They clearly did not get the memo of the whole soul awareness thing. They thought Jesus meant Lazarus was taking a nap. But then in verse 14, Jesus had to spell it out for them. All right, listen, bro. Lazarus isn't just sleeping, he's dead. He needed them to understand that Lazarus wasn't just having a bit of a snooze, he was completely unaware of his true self. He had forgotten his divine spark entirely. The story of Lazarus is really about a story of all of us being in our Son of Man level of consciousness. We all fall asleep at times, losing sight of our divine nature. But the journey of the Son of Man is about waking up, reconnecting with the spark of God within, and remembering who we truly are. As we've seen, the Son of Man represents the soul's journey through life's challenges, often aware of his true divine nature. But what happens when the soul begins to awaken and recognize its connection to the divine? This brings us to the next stage, the Son of God. Let's explore what that means and how it ties us back to ancient teachings. Section 3, the concept of sons of God, the descent of the divine. Now let's explore the sons of God. In traditional Christian teachings, we often think of Jesus as the one true Son of God. But as I reach back into the ancient wisdom of Kemet, I realize that this concept is actually an archetype rather than a reference to a literal man. This connection to ancient Kemet makes the meaning much clearer. In Kemet, over 3,000 years before Christianity, the Son of God was represented by Horus, often represented as the light of the world. Horus symbolized the divine spark within each of us, the part of our soul that carries the essence of the divine. This concept isn't about being male or female. It's about the awakened soul that shines with the divine light, just as Jesus was described in the Bible as the light of the world. In John chapter 11, Jesus spoke of the world's light, which echoes the ancient Egyptian idea. It represents the soul that has reached a higher level of consciousness, a state of being where we're connected with the infinite wisdom, love, and light. This divine potential exists within all of us, waiting to be realized. Unlike Lazarus, who represents the soul in a state of sleep or unawareness, the Son of God is the awakened, fully conscious individual. In ancient Egypt, this concept was embodied by Horus or Yeusa, and in the Bible, it's represented by Jesus. Both figures point to the same truth, the divine light within us that awakens to our true higher nature. As we continue this journey of the soul, we now return to the daughters of men. This isn't about gender, but about the nurturing creative energy that shapes our experiences. To understand this more deeply, we need to look back into ancient Egypt where this idea finds its roots. Now that we've uncovered the sons of God and the awakened divine light within us, It's time to understand the role of the daughters of men. What do they represent, and how do they complete this picture of the soul's journey? Let's delve into the next layer of the ancient wisdom. Section 4. The daughters of men, the nurturing, receptive aspect of humanity. The phrase daughters of men in the Bible is often interpreted as a simple reference to women, but its true meaning goes much deeper. To understand it fully, we need to look beyond gender and into the ancient Egyptian teachings where this concept originated. In essence, the daughters of men represent the nurturing, receptive, and creative energy present in every soul, regardless of gender. This is a divine feminine force that allows ideas, desires, and dreams to take root and grow. It's like the fertile soil in which creativity and inspiration are nurtured. For instance, the name Mary, which appears frequently in the Bible, is linked to an ancient Egyptian concept meaning beloved. This connection goes further. Mary embodies the divine feminine energy, drawing in and nurturing the components of our desires. Many Egyptian goddesses or netters carry this title, symbolizing their roles as carriers of wisdom and nurturing forces. Take the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus. Her role is directly connected to the Egyptian goddess Nut, who was known as the Sky Mother or Sky Goddess, giving birth to the sun each day. Both figures symbolize the nurturing, creative energy that helps bring forth life and light. We also see this reflected in the story of Lazarus and his sisters, Mary and Martha. These two women correspond to the Egyptian goddesses Isis and Nephthys. In ancient Egypt, Isis represented the nurturing, motherly force, while Nephthys embodied the protective, supportive aspect of creation. The Bible mirrors this symbolism. For example, in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 and 39, the narrator cleverly encodes their roles when Martha welcomes Jesus into her home. It parallels the hieroglyphic symbol for Nephthys, a house, while Mary sitting at Jesus' feet mirrors Isis' symbol, the throne or seat. Therefore, the daughters of men represent the soul's ability to nurture, receive, and create, qualities that transcend gender. It's the divine feminine force within all of us that allows inspiration to take root, dreams to flourish, and compassion to flow. It connects us to a much older universal understanding of nurturing and creation. So how do these energies of the sons of God and daughters of men come together? The Bible speaks of a union between them, but what does this mean for us on a deeper, esoteric level? Let's see how the divine integration plays out in our everyday lives. Section 5. The union of sons of God with the daughters of men. Divine and earthly integration. The Bible tells us that the sons of God came together with the daughters of men. And while many have taken this story literally, from an esoteric perspective, it represents something much deeper. It symbolizes the union of divine and earthly energies within us, the integration of the soul's higher spiritual aspects with its nurturing, creative, and receptive nature. This union isn't just an abstract concept. It plays out in our everyday lives in ways that we might not even realize. For example, think about a musician who channels inspiration to create a piece of music that moves others. In that moment, the musician is embodying the Son of God, bringing down divine inspiration and merging it with the nurturing, receptive quality of the daughters of men to give birth to something beautiful in the material world. The music itself becomes an expression of the divine human union, the child, nurturing the soul of anyone who listens. Or consider a school teacher who dedicates themselves to guiding and mentoring their students. This teacher is not just passing on knowledge. They're nurturing potential, fostering growth, and creating an environment where young minds can thrive. They embody the qualities of the daughters of men, nurturing and supporting the seeds of wisdom, while also channeling the higher ideals of the Son of God by imparting knowledge and inspiration. And what about a community worker? Someone who gives their time and energy to help those in need, to build connections, and to create a sense of unity. They're the living embodiment of this union, integrating compassion and care, the nurturing energy of the daughters of men, with the desire to bring about positive change, reflecting the divine actions of the sons of God. In each of these examples, we see how the union is not just an ancient mythological idea, but a living, breathing reality. It's the moment when our higher divine selves merges with our nurturing receptive self, allowing us to manifest creativity, compassion, and wisdom in the material world. This union is the soul's journey toward wholeness, blending spiritual inspiration with earthly experience, and it exists within all of us, regardless of gender. Section 6. Challenging religious limitations, reclaiming our divine potential. For too long, we've been taught to see these archetypes through the lens of gender or as belonging to specific people. But in reality, they are expressions of every soul's journey. It often requires us to let go of past beliefs that have kept us limited, especially those dogmatic ideas that divide and restrict us. These ancient concepts are always meant to broaden our understanding at the level of the soul, to help us embrace change and growth. It's about moving beyond these constraints and reclaiming the knowledge that you, as a soul, are inherently limitless and divine, not a born sinner or someone who has fallen. Our journey through these archetypes has shown us that the soul's path is far more dynamic, fluid, and limitless than we were taught. Now, it's time to ask yourself, how will you embody these truths in your own life? Let's continue this journey together. So these archetypes, the sons of God, sons of men, and daughters of men, they're identities, but again, they're just not like fixed roles that you reach a level and you stay there. Because I think a lot of people who get into these spiritual ideas think you're supposed to reach one level and then you stay there and you never have any troubles anymore and stuff like that. That's just not how these work. As souls, we flow between these states, constantly shifting from one to another throughout our day, moment by moment, hour by hour. Sometimes we embody the Son of God, feeling inspired and connected to a higher purpose. Other times, we're the daughters of men, nurturing, creating, and embracing the receptive aspects of our nature. This fluidity is part of what makes our soul's journey so rich and dynamic. It's not about fitting into a single role, but about allowing ourselves to explore the full spectrum of these energies as we grow, evolve, and respond to life. So, which of these archetypes are you experiencing today? How do you find yourself moving between them as you navigate your journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how these energies are unfolding in your life. If you're ready to explore these teachings further, to uncover the wisdom that lies beyond gender, identity, and the limitations of fixed roles, sign up for the Esoteric AI Mentor. It's a tool powered by ChatGPT, but trained on Kemetic and ancient esoteric knowledge. Click the link in the video description and discover the knowledge that will expand you consciously. Thank you for watching. If this video resonates with you, consider subscribing to join our growing community on this journey of rediscovery and enlightenment. Your support helps us reach a goal of 100,000 subscribers. But more importantly, by sharing this video, you can spread these empowering insights to others who need them. Together, let's bring this ancient wisdom to light and inspire a positive shift in the world.